Welcome, everybody, to the Just Berry podcast. Today, we're talking with Hailey, whose journey shows what's possible when you refuse to give up. After a setback 2 days before high school graduation derailed her original plans, she joined the Army in 2012, starting as a petroleum supply specialist before moving into civil affairs and aviation. Over 13 years of service, she earned multiple college degrees while balancing deployments, training, and the demands of military life. From overcoming a DOI, broken bones, and failed exams to proving herself without any family military background, Hailey has learned how to turn failure into fuel. In this episode, she shares the lessons, mindset, and grit that have kept her moving forward no matter what. Welcome to the show today, Hailey.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this. We both, so I remember when I met you at one of the schools that we were attending, you really stood out to me as an example and a leader of a strong woman, and I really admired your presence and how you show up. You're very confident and just very inclusive of everybody. And I feel like you really didn't care what anybody thought about you. Like you were just doing your thing. And it was in the beginning of when I had joined the military, and I was still kind of figuring out I was and what I wanted to be doing in life and growing my own confidence. And there's one time where we were doing group PT or exercising, and you called me out on the football field, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was so nervous. I was like, what do I say? I was just so shy and timid, and you really helped me break out of my shell during that time. So I just want to say thank you, because I don't think I've ever told you that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I feel like I knew there was something special about you. I could just tell you were a great, genuine person. And I know it was kind of hard for us to develop our friendship in that school because of the rank difference and with COVID not actually being in class and stuff. But some of our PT sessions in the gym and that working group thing we had that time was the art thing, I think. Those were some of the things that definitely helped, and touching base and stuff and getting coffee before I left.
With your cute dog. I remember one time before formation, and you just hopped on one of the pull-up bars out there, and you pushed out 20 pull-ups. And I was like, what the? I've never seen anybody do 20 pull-ups, let alone a female. I was like, wow, I want to be like you one day.
Thank
So,
you. Yeah,
yeah.
good to me in a sense of routine and structure and I guess fitness. There was nothing else to do really.
Have you always been big into fitness, or when did that journey start for you?
I would consider myself, I guess, most of my life to be like a skinny fat, if that makes sense. I come from a family, everybody's kind of small, I wasn't in any kind of shape, I guess, but I was just small. So joining the Army, I guess it was a little tough at first with running and I always played softball and played sports. So I was athletic, but not really training for any specific thing. So I would say around late 2013, early 2014, I really tried to get a grasp on, okay, what should I be eating every day? How much water should I be drinking? What the importance of what foods to have? What should I be doing at the gym? Because I was really shy about the gym. My first couple of years in the Army, I wouldn't do leg day, or there was certain things I would avoid because I didn't know what I was doing. So just searching and kind of learning and just trying to see what works for my body and what doesn't work is kind of what got me into it. So I would say since 2014 up until now, fitness has become a very huge, important part of my daily life. At least an hour a day, I try to do something.
Well, it definitely makes a difference, and it definitely shows not just physically, but your mentality. And I think how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And so consistent daily effort really shows from the outside of your work ethic and who you are as a person. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of days where you don't want to do it, but it's the discipline has to outweigh the motivation, really, because the ultimate thing is you're going to feel better after you do it. So even if it's just making a little bit of time to not.
100%. So you didn't have anybody really in your family in the military. And so what made you decide to join?
So I graduated high school in 2010, and I got in trouble a couple of days before graduating high school. I was underage drinking with some friends at my house while my mom was at work, and that situation escalated. My mom was in bed, and I chose to take the keys and drive the car and leave the house. And I was blackout drunk, so I had no recollection. And then I'm 40 minutes into my drive going 90 in a 45. and I get pulled over. And then it dawns on me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I am drunk and I have left my house. I'm underage. I'm driving my car. I'm speeding extremely fast. So yeah, fast forward, pulled over, get out of the car, like fail all of the tests they do to see if you've been drinking and whatnot. And then like checks my ID and my age. And like by this time, I've probably been gone from my house like an hour and some change. And I think my mom woke up and was like looking for me and then realized that I was not there. And she was already mad at me because I'd had people over and I was underage drinking and all this stuff while she was at work. So then, like, officer to please answer the phone, so he could let her know that I was okay and, that I was going to be getting taken in. And that drastically changed my life. She had to come get me out of jail on a property bond. So whenever my court date came, if I didn't show up for that, we would essentially lose our house because that was like, it was either that or you paid the bail fee. So she put our house up as a property bond. And yeah, came home. She was losing her mind on me, of course. I had to get up morning. Maybe I got like 3 hours of rest, if that, and go to graduation practice. And yeah, so I originally I started working when I was 14. I worked at a restaurant most of my time up until joining the Army, and I worked at a grocery store briefly. So I'd already was ready to start taking some college classes, and I wanted to go to college for respiratory therapy. Well, when I got the DUI and all of that happened, I'm like, wow, this is a huge setback. So I'm going to do something in the medical field with that on my record. So I did my probation, continued to work, paid all my fines off, had to spend like 24 hours in jail, a lot of hours of community service. So I knocked all those things out. And then I was like, I think I'm going to try to join the military. And I was like, I don't really know what to expect or what I should try to do. And so that's kind of what led me to deciding to join the military roughly 2 years.
When you were in basic training and as you started in your job and everything with the military, how did it play out versus your expectations going into it?
Well, I wanted to join the Air Force, and they were like, absolutely not, because you got a DUI. And then I talked to the Navy recruiter, and she wasn't really helpful. So I was like, okay, well, my only option is to join the Army. And so at the job options, there was like one option because I had to get a background check in every town I'd lived in, worked in, and went to school in because of the DUI. So petroleum supply specialist was the only job that popped up. And I'm like, okay, I guess I will take that job. And it was a 6-month wait from signing to go to basic training and even get started. So I didn't really know what to expect at all. And I was like, I'll try this out. I think my contract was 3 or 4 years. And I was like, if that doesn't work out, and I don't like it, I'll just get out and at least learn about the military, I restructure my life, see where it takes me. And then I found out other job options and how I could assess for civil affairs and kind of leave that opportunity for something bigger and better.
Right. So going into the civil affairs, that's when you broke your leg, right?
Yeah, so I assessed for civil affairs like in 2014 and then got picked up for that, got in the pipeline. I was just a few months out from graduation and I was playing softball on the weekend and rounded first base and fractured like a tib-fib fracture. So like 8 weeks I was on crutches. I had just passed all my hard gates for the civil affairs course. We had like a ruck, a PT test, and like a 5-mile run or something. And really the next weekend I broke my leg. So that set me back probably 6 months and then kind of had to like relearn to run and walk again. And then back in the rest of the pipeline to finish the course.
Wow. And so that was before the school where I met you, right? Because you had changed jobs after that.
Yeah, so I ended up graduating the civil affairs course, I think late 16 or early 2017. And then I was in civil affairs for 3 years and I met you at the Language Institute on the tail end of those 3 years.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So what would you say is the biggest thing that helped you through that setback of the broken leg? Because fitness, was that a big part of your daily routine at that point?
Yeah. I just continued to study and try to stay as good as I could with what I knew I needed to know for the course. And one of my best friends at the time, her husband, his job was pretty flexible and he was in school. So whenever he would go to the gym, he would come get me and I would go to the gym on crutches and do all upper body stuff. But I couldn't go to the gym by myself because trying to drive and navigate all of those things alone wasn't really possible. But as long as somebody that could take me and kind of be patient, bring the weights to where I was sitting, stuff like that, I was still able to work out. I just couldn't do anything with my leg.
Right. That's a big thing because it could have been easy to use as an excuse, like, oh, my leg's broken, like I can't do anything. But you still had that resilient mindset where you're like, okay, what can I do? And just focused on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I knew there was going to come the time where I have to get back in the course. I was going to need to pass all those 3 hard gates again and be as fit as I could be getting back into it, minus like reintroducing my leg to everything that I kind of needed to relearn how to do again. But it helped me a lot because then it wasn't my entire body that was completely out of shape. It was just healing my leg and then getting back into running and rucking. So it really helped me because that was one of the only things I could do and looked forward to do. And then just like reading, studying, praying,
Yeah. Yeah.
trusting the process, understanding that I couldn't rush recovery because
Mm.
it just takes a while.
Yeah, that's a big thing that I've faced doing martial arts and my own physical fitness is when I do get injured, it's like that fine line between doing what you can and then making sure you're recovering properly, and that can be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, especially when you don't want to take days off. And I struggle sometimes with like comparing myself to others or things I know I need to get done. And I'm like, I'm going to be so far behind. I have to stay busy. I'm like such a busybody. So allowing myself to rest and understanding that it's okay to miss a few days, I definitely struggle with that.
hmm And you mentioned the comparing yourself to other people, and that's a huge thing too. When you put yourself up against somebody else who's not injured, it's like just reminding yourself that everybody's journey is different. You know, you're where you need to be in the process of your own journey. So then we were at the language school. And for those of you who don't know, the Language Institutes, there's different branches of the military where you go and you stay for various amounts of time based on what language you're learning. And then at the end, you take a big test to assess your fluency level in that language. And so with you, Hailey, at the end of that course, how did that go for you?
So I had a history with French already from civil affairs and was able to use it in various countries in Africa. So coming into attending the Language Institute, my overall goal was to get better at French, knowing though that I could communicate decent with the language, but I'm not a good test taker. Being immersed in the country, ordering food, having conversations, stuff like that was like fun to me. But taking standardized tests, I was really worried about it because I've always kind of struggled with that. So fast forward, we're in COVID, we're doing language on Teams and we're not physically with our instructors in class and stuff. It comes time to take our test. And yeah, I didn't get the result I hoped for. So we needed a 2-2 to pass. And I unfortunately didn't get that. I think I ended up getting a 1+2. So I was like panicking. I'm like, oh gosh, like, what am I going to do? Well, during that process, I was finishing up my master's degree. I was also getting my entire packet together to submit my packet to try to get picked up as a warrant officer for aviation. So, one of my biggest concerns was okay, if I don't get picked up for aviation to be a warrant officer, I'm going to go back to civil affairs after they allotted me this opportunity to further study French, and then I didn't pass the test. So in order to get the associate's degree in French, you have to pass the test. So I was pretty worried about that. So they came up with a program that they put us in for a couple extra weeks. And luckily the best teacher, Madam Shorin, I had her. So she was like my tutor. And I studied and worked hard every day. And when I retested, I was able to pass.
Nice. Again, that mindset of just focusing on what you can control and doing your very best, even when you fail that first time. And it sounds like that paid off.
Yeah, looking back, I almost kind of think the timing was helpful in a sense because I was already on orders to go back to Fort Bragg. And then when I didn't pass the test, they changed my orders and extended me in Monterey longer, which allowed for the aviation packet to get processed. while I was in the additional weeks prior to retesting. So then I didn't have to go back to Fort Bragg and then for a very short period of time to then move to Alabama. It afforded me the opportunity to just stay in a really beautiful place a little bit longer. Had to work a little bit harder to pass the second time, but I did get picked up for flight school, which was something that I was really banking on. If that didn't work, I wanted to get out of the Army. So I really think the timing kind of just fell together and just kind of had to trust that process.
I love that you mentioned the opportunity or the good thing that came out of that perceived hardship in the beginning, because of course you take that test, you want to pass it, and then if you don't pass, you're like, oh, you feel like you should have, but then trusting the process and looking back, you can see how by not passing it that first time, things kind of lined up and came together. I just think that's so huge. It's almost like now in my life, I've recognized that pattern where the perceived hardships or, difficult challenges that just come out of nowhere, there's always something good that is going to come out of it. So when something happens, I'm like, okay, let's see where this leads me, and embracing that process is really helpful.
I'm a big to-do list kind of person, very timeline oriented, and some of these setbacks, what it really made me realize is as much as I would like to, I cannot control my own timeline. And so sometimes you just have to understand that you're not going to pass every single thing the first time with no problems, or you're not going to be injury free your whole life. And it's just understanding that it's part of the journey. So what are you going to do while you're in that setback, while you're recovering, while you're trying again to pass something that you're working on, and take a step back and realize we are not in charge of our timeline on our journey.
Yeah, 100%. I actually just went on a camping retreat with one of my clients here in Sedona, and it was just like spot on with what you're saying, because he had kind of written out a little timeline of what he'd wanted to do for that day and on the different experiences that he was wanting to have. And then partway through the day, his car started smoking and it just completely broke down. And I was like, well, you didn't put that on the schedule. And so we just had to like figure it out and, get the tow truck and then keep continuing on with the experience as best we could. And it's so true. You can't factor in every little thing into your timeline, and there's a lot that you don't have in your control. And so when those things pop up, just refocus and take a step back and really see it as an opportunity to keep moving forward in other ways.
Absolutely.
But after the language school, when you passed, then you're in flight school, right?
Yeah, I moved to Alabama after California.
What were some of the hardships that you faced during flight school?
Some things I had the opportunity to see and do in Africa is what led me for like the passion of wanting to fly, but didn't really realize how much came with just airspace, aerodynamics, the systems of aircraft. Like I could go on, but had no idea about any of that or maybe how hard it would be. So did like the basic Army requirements on the front end, warrant officer candidate school, just kind of silly, how some military schools can be like your rites of passage almost, right? And then we had the warrant officer basic course. And then I'd already done SEER school a couple years back when I first got into civil affairs. So luckily that was out of the way. And then actually got started with the aviation pipeline. And every day was just a battle of like, okay, I'm going to prioritize the gym. It either has to be really early in the morning or it's going to be much later in the day. You would spend half the time at the flight line flying, or the other half of the time in the classroom, constantly learning new things to do with aviation. And then you'd be tested on those. And then your schedule would swap. You'd be flying in the morning and you'd be in academics all afternoon. So it was just very much like time management was huge, and really just kind of realized I didn't really know how to study well, because I have some degrees and stuff and I went to college online, and pretty much the first 10 years of my time in the Army, I was taking college classes, just chipping away at degree stuff. It was like that. A lot of those things just required me to write papers. And this was studying, rote memorization. Okay, but now applying what I have memorized to try to connect everything, like correlation. And I just realized, wow, this is tough, and everybody pretty much feels the same way, I think. And I guess unless you come from the civilian aviation background, or if you were like a crew chief or a crew member prior to swapping over to become a pilot, you'd have an upper hand then as far as as knowledge base goes. But I really had to immerse myself with friends, study with them. Luckily, we call it a stick buddy, but it's the person that you fly with. Like
Mm.
whenever you're flying up front with the instructor, they're in the back, and then you swap. So like I got him into working out, and we held each other accountable with like the fitness aspect. And then he was smarter than me, so with studying, like it helped a lot. And then he was also religious. Like I would go to church with him on Sundays, and he held me accountable in a lot of ways that really helped me stay focused. School's like a little over a year, and sometimes you have some bubbles in between phases where it's like backed up. And if you get hurt or if they have maintenance issue, it can take up to almost 2 years. So you really have to stay disciplined and motivated even through times when you're like, I don't want to study today, or I'm dreading flying, or just whatever. Because some days you're struggling trying to get it all processed where every day of it is not enjoyable, but you got to remember your end goal.
I love that. Loving, remembering the end goal and probably your why, like why you're doing it in the first place. What was that why for you, if you don't mind sharing?
Well, I just realized with my first job in the Army, with the fuel stuff, I just joined to get away from my town, reset myself and my life, and see if I would like the military. And then with civil affairs, that allowed me opportunity to learn another language, go to some other countries, meet a lot of other people, a lot of people that were much smarter than me that really challenged me, which was great. But then towards the end of that 3 years of just doing that, I realized I was still hunting for something else. I'm like, I'm not really feeling job satisfaction, and I love this job. Like I want to do this job for 12 more years. So I was at like 7, 8 years in the Army at that point. So when I was in Burkina Faso with my civil affairs team, and we had a civilian company flying us in a fixed wing aircraft like all over the country for some of our mission stuff. And that's when I was like, wow, it would really be cool to be a pilot. And we had some Burkinabe soldiers get shot near one of our key leader engagements one day, and we were able to evacuate them back to the capital city to get them to the hospital. And it wasn't on a helicopter, which like I fly Blackhawks now, and I'm currently in a Medevac unit, which is super cool, but they were on an airplane. But it still showed me what a difference you can make. And I was like, I really think I would enjoy this challenge, something new. Like, I don't really know anything about it. And just seeing on the ground in that country how quick you can help change someone's life and their situation. So that's kind of where the passion came from. And then I was like, all right, I'm already in the Army. What do they offer? I'm already enlisted. I've already been in for a couple years. So how can I figure out how to fly in the same branch? And then just started researching because I didn't really know anything about aviation or becoming a warrant officer, and then realized any job can submit a packet for that.
It seems like you've taken that initiative with a lot of different areas of your life. Where do you feel like that sense of taking initiative or your grit and passion comes from?
My mom and aunt are very much go-getters in a sense of just making things happen, getting stuff done, kind of like OCD, super clean freaks. That instilled like a really good work ethic in me. And my mom was single a lot of my childhood. So it was me, her, and my brother. So she worked a lot to support both of us. And I started working at a young age. So I think I just realized in order to make things happen for yourself, you got to figure out what you got to do to get it done and save your money and figure out investing and whatever it takes to really set yourself up for success, because it's not just going to fall in your lap unless you just come from a very wealthy family, which I didn't. So I think I early on adapted work ethic, like find a way to get it done, to figure out whatever it takes to accomplish what you want to be doing, not really take a no for an answer. It's just like, okay, if I try this avenue and I hit a dead end, I'll try something else.
And that habit and ability to keep trying will eventually lead you where you're meant to be and so hopefully where you want to be in the end too. And so right now you're in the career that you're finding fulfillment in. Is like you're enjoying where you're at now.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it a lot. Let's see, I just hit 13 years this year in April. I'm currently at Fort Benning in Georgia flying in the Medevac unit. We support Rangers. Um, and really like the high risk mitigator for Fort Benning and up in Mountain Phase of Ranger School in Dahlonega. So it's been a great opportunity. I've had the opportunity to go out and work with the Medevac in Yakima, Washington as well. I'm from Georgia, so I'm close to family. So it's just been really awesome for being close to home, job satisfaction, really spending a lot of time with family on things that I've missed out the past, 8 or so years because I've been farther away. And I'm looking forward to finishing my 20 or 20 plus years like flying and then figuring out, do I want to fly after the Army, or maybe I want to find something else to challenge me, like maybe something else new.
As a female in the military, and especially like, as a warrant officer doing the job you're doing like from Blackhawks, I think that's so badass, first of all. And second of all, like how has that experience been for you as a female? Do you feel like it's different, or do you feel like you're just, you know, one of the guys, or no? How do you feel?
Yeah, I guess I don't really think about it a whole lot in that sense, but I mean, I've never had any issues like kind of just being one of the guys. And my stick buddy in flight school was a guy. The majority of my teammates and people I worked with in civil affairs were guys. So it's just always like being a team player, like once people realize what you bring to the table and your work ethic and what you can put forward towards the end goal of whatever it is your team is working on or your unit. People respect that. And I think that's when they look past gender. Like if you're not lazy and you're a good person and you're honest and you're diligent and you work hard and you're helpful to others, you don't have any issues. I mean, that's my personal opinion, but really it's just kind of like showing everybody else what you bring to the table, and people respect that.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to someone who's thinking about enlisting, especially females?
I would really do research on all the branches and kind of narrow down what you think you want to do. Also, recruiters will tell you one thing, but sometimes I think there's more job opportunities than what they lead on to. Maybe they're just trying to fill that job at that time. So if you really want to be a certain job or do a certain thing, don't stop until you get enough information and figure out how to make that happen so that you can get off on the right foot doing exactly what you wanted. And I mean, just work out and study and be able to prove to whoever you're going to be working for that you're more than capable of doing the job well. And that really will go a long way.
I love that. What's been your favorite part of being in the military?
Um, Probably just being able to travel to other countries and see different cultures and speak to people in a different language and just kind of see how other people do things. I'm from a small town in Georgia, very conservative, closed minded kind of country, southern place where it's just like there's so much more to the world. If you don't get out and travel and have the opportunity, then you'd never know that. So, had I not ever moved out of my small town I was from, I would have never been exposed to some of these things. And it really just gives you a different perspective on life and really teaches you patience, I think, and teaches you like everybody's not the same and we all have our different walk of life. So, how can you intermingle with others like that and connect to them and understand their beliefs and background and vice versa?
I think that's one of my favorite things about being in the military is the diversity and all the different people that you meet that you definitely wouldn't have met otherwise. It's just cool how serving is a unifying factor. Like it doesn't matter where you come from, what culture you're, none of that stuff matters, or it shouldn't matter at least. Like you're all there trying to support the same goals. So with flying, what's your favorite part about flying?
Definitely not the planning. I don't think people that do not fly or have no experience with flying, they don't understand how much planning goes with it. Um, so kind of my least favorite thing is everything leading up to actually flying. Once you're actually up there flying, getting comfortable with it, then it's, you realize what a cool job you do have. Like it's not every day that somebody just gets to go fly an aircraft or a helicopter around, and it's very demanding and you do have to study a lot. And I feel like I'm in a constant state of, I'm like, oh, wow, I just studied this last week. Well, I'm already forgetting it. So you just constantly got to keep studying even the same things. And there's always something else to learn. And there's always people that will know more than you. So you just kind of have to understand that and accept that and find a way to enjoy it. And also like appreciate the beauty, because you get to see a lot of cool stuff from the sky that everybody doesn't get the opportunity to do.
Yeah. My unit did an exercise, I think it was last winter, where we were like on top of some hills or mountains, and it was in the winter, and the Blackhawks came, and they were like lined up, and we did like a simulated medevac with the Air Force. And so I was the person that got loaded up into the Blackhawk and was laying down, and they did the IV and everything. And I was like, oh, wow, it's crazy just to imagine like the pressure and stress that everybody on board is dealing with on a constant basis. Wait, how do you handle that stress?
I mean, really, it just comes down to kind of like crew coordination, task delegation, being like a first name basis with your crew, making sure that you all get along and just understand what is your ultimate goal and safety of the personnel in the aircraft, you know. So it's just, you have to take the job serious and be professional, but there's also time to have fun as well. So it's just
Hmm.
understanding that. And then, like, there's no time for arguing in the cockpit or amongst your crew. You know, you get to a safe place and land if you have a disagreement and you can discuss it after that. But just understanding like safety and flying and paying attention to what's going on in the sky is always most important.
I think that's pretty similar, or it can be similar in our lives. We have our circle or our team, people that we're working with on a day-to-day basis, and if everybody is aware of the end goal and what we're all trying to accomplish, there's not going to be that time for arguing or putting other people down or gossiping. Camaraderie. I think you can apply that in any situation in daily life.
Absolutely. Sometimes, you know, you may fly with people you really enjoy flying with and have more conversation than normal. And there may be others that not your favorite to fly with. So you just stay more focused on the mission and you don't really do
Hmm.
much talking, you know, you just
Yeah,
focusing on the flight.
that's so cool. I'm winding down here. I wanted to ask, what is one lesson that you have learned from life?
Probably just understanding that the majority of the time you're gonna fail at something before you find a success. And it's just understanding how are you gonna navigate that failure to turn it into a win.
Hmm. I love that. And if you were able to sit down and talk to your 10-year-old self, what would you say to them?
10-year-old self, I probably would have prioritized studying some type of foreign language more in school, fitness for sure, and I would have avoided drinking in high school. I thought it was cool to underage drink, and I think that really set me back. Obviously, I overcame that obstacle and moved
Mhm.
past that, but like I would have been better at sports. I would have been more physically fit and just more mentally at it every day had I not been doing that. So understanding like the things that we thought were cool when we were younger, looking back, I'm like, that was so dumb.
Yeah. I think it's just part of that process. Like you got to go through it and get that experience to really understand it sometimes.
Yeah.
What do you think your 10-year-old self would say to you?
I don't really know. I guess I never thought of it like that. My 10-year-old self then would say to me now,
Yeah, what would your 10-year-old self say?
I don't know. I feel like that's a hard question. I don't know. I think my 10-year-old self then just I wanted to have fun and I wasn't thinking like how I think now of how to like really set myself up and be focused on success and the end goal and to retire early, stuff like that. So I think I
Yeah.
would focus on having fun. Yeah, I think it's extremely important and can be overlooked a lot, especially if you're in a season of life that your schedule is extremely busy, but you definitely have to set aside time to make sure you go out and do something you enjoy doing and just kind of decompress and unwind. Otherwise, you're just going to burn yourself out. I think we hit on all the hot topics. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and it's been super exciting to watch you grow and figure out what's bringing you happiness and what you really want to be doing in life and seeing you in your groups and helping others. And I know you'll continue to excel and grow doing that. And a lot of people will be truly touched by your presence and your guidance.
Thank you so much, Hailey. It has been an amazing conversation, and I am looking forward to seeing you again sometime, hopefully soon. And to those watching, I would ask you guys to share with somebody who came to mind, maybe somebody thinking about joining the military, anyone in the military, anyone going through a challenge and difficulty right now that could use words of encouragement. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.